The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. We are back 24 hours early for a special Wednesday edition of Anime Thursdays on the Nerdcast Empire. I am Matt in the studio. Great to have you along with us. It's been a long day, but we're ready for some podcasting here on the Nerdcast Empire. And again, 24 hours early because I've got soccer duties tomorrow night. You can catch my call of the NKU women against Milwaukee tomorrow night, 7 o'clock on ESPN+, which is a rematch of last year's Horizon League Championship match. Should be a good one tomorrow night, but that has forced our podcast a little early this week. We are talking anime news and notes and then fall 2024 anime preview, and there's lots of big stuff, and if you are currently watching a big show, there's a good chance it's probably continuing into the fall, so we'll talk all about that on this episode. Joining me in studio, as always, is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
Oh, man, we are here. Like you said, a day early, but ready to talk about fall 2024. Looking through the list, I was really hyped about it, and then I realized that, man, I think I'm excited about this because I've been kind of keeping up on shows pretty well lately.
You've been doing much better than I have, and I'm hoping once I survive this crazy month of September that life will kind of get back to normal and I can get into a regular routine of watching anime, but it's been pretty wild. But we're going to get to some stuff in kind of the second part of the show talking about fall 2024, and we'll talk a little bit about fall 2024 at the beginning of the second part as well, just to kind of talk about Crunchyroll announcing their schedule, and we'll tie that into our selections with just a few news items on this episode. Nothing real heavy this week, which is kind of nice, but just some news for fans of some certain shows. You're either getting new seasons of shows or possibly some theatrical releases. The first one is a show that has been very popular this season. It is one that on many of the lists has been one of the top-rated shows of the summer season. Alia Sometimes Hides Her Feelings in Rush and announced that is going to get a second season. The company announced that in a special video announcement. Obviously, it's your Cute Girl of the Year show, which is that's always going to be popular. Sumire Uesaka is always incredibly popular in the role she's in, and a lot of great cast working on this. Doga Kobo was in charge of the scripts. Someone who worked on Love Live, the School Idol project, did the character designs, which is very noticeable. You definitely see that kind of carryover, but I think, something you pointed out that I was not aware of is that the ending themes throughout the show that Sumire Uesaka has done are basically cover songs of other anime themes and some classic ones as well, which also will tend to make it popular. But good news for fans of that show. It's one that has been on my radar that eventually I will try to get back and watch from the beginning. But, it's always good when popular shows they continue on beyond the one season. There's nothing more frustrating than getting into a one-season show, and it's great, and everybody says it's great, and then it's gone, and it never comes back again. So good news for fans of that show.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when the trailer for the first season of this hit, it immediately looked like something that I knew would be popular, even if I wasn't necessarily all that interested in checking it out. They actually mentioned in the article about the ending themes for Season 1, which I was not aware of either, but it's definitely worth looking up on YouTube and checking out the endings. Obviously, they're performed really well. Uesaka's great. So, it kind of makes me wonder, like, if we were to take each season and look at the new shows and each pick one that we think is going to last the longest and just see how that pans out, because this one would have been kind of a no-brainer probably.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, big cast. I mean, even the supporting cast, big names in anime industry. Katakawa's behind it, and obviously they're huge. So, makes a lot of sense. This was a show also, if I remember correctly, that was delayed by a season. I think they pushed it back to summer to try to, I don't know if there was animation delays or whatever it might have been, but it was clearly one that they wanted to make sure they had all their ducks in a row before they got it out. It's done really well. It's going to get a second season. I think a lot of people will be really happy about that.
For sure.
Coming up, a project that I honestly just read about today, and I'm really kind of interested to see what this might be. The official X account for Katakawa's monthly Asuka magazine teased a new project by DN Angel creator Yukuru Sugisaki. The magazine's November issue will reveal more details when it ships September the 24th. You and I were both big fans of the Dean Angel anime. It was really good. I've got the manga. The manga kind of went on a lengthy hiatus, and I don't know if I ever went back and bought more of it, but the manga was really good as well. We obviously don't know anything about this yet. Obviously, when we hear what it is, when we get to November, we'll certainly talk about it because, again, I think if it's anywhere in the ballpark of what Dean Angel was, I think it's going to be a big hit.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what this turns out to be. But it's kind of funny reading the article when they kind of go through the timeline of Dean Angel's manga and like how it started and stopped so many times. It's like it premiered in 1997, went on hiatus in 2005, returned in 2008. But he didn't conclude the story. It resumed in May of 2018 and ended in January of 2021. So, to my knowledge, it's never really concluded, even though it stopped at that point. I don't really know for sure, but that's like Hunter x Hunter type scheduling, I guess.
Yeah, definitely a challenge. Other works by Sugisaki include Brain-Powered, Lagoon Engine Einsatz, which is another show that's was really a popular manga. Pilot Candidate.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So a lot of popular series. I would imagine this next one will also be a big one. So we're really excited about that. Definitely want to know what that's going to be. So we'll let you know when we get to November and we hear more about that. Really excited. These next two news items may be specifically for me, and that's okay, because every once in a while we'll throw one in that I'm excited about. But I think this first one can tie into maybe a broader potential
trend. This is
trend.
just good news.
It is. And the news that has been frustrating for years is one of my favorite shows I watch, Sound Euphonium. The release of it was subtitle only, which is fine, because I watched the subtitle. Better than nothing, but it was also super expensive, which is why I don't own it. Solicitation came out on Crunchyroll's website on their store that not only announced a more affordable Blu-ray version of the first season of Sound Euphonium, but a previously unproduced English dub of the series. And it's just a fun show. It's really well written. It's Kyoto Animation. A lot of the cast, I think, that was involved in this, unfortunately, were involved in the fire at Kyoto Animation, which certainly kind of halted the project overall. They did just have a third season, or they're having it now. I can't remember which. That's another show that I'm behind on. I definitely want to go back and watch that. But beautifully animated. The music is really good. They had like concert pieces. They had like a full orchestra concert as part of this. But, I think for Sound Euphonium fans like myself, fantastic news. For fans of shows that have had physical releases that have been overpriced and sub-only, maybe this is a sign that Crunchyroll is going to potentially start looking at creating affordable releases that are available in English so that people can listen to dubs and hopefully get into some of these amazing shows.
Any pro-fan news that comes out of Crunchyroll is exciting because I feel like that's been in short supply as of late.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, this show premiered back in 2015, so I can't imagine how many people were still withholding hope that maybe someday there would be a reasonably priced dubbed collection. So that's really encouraging. I mentioned the Blu-ray releases on December 17th with 13 episodes of season 1 and an OVA, I think.
Yeah.
I would go back to your My Anime list and look at shows similarly timed and maybe, get the word out, start talking about them. Maybe you too will have a physical copy of your favorite kind of mid-teens anime that might have got skipped over.
Yeah, I hope this is a trend that will continue. Obviously, we brag about Discotheque and the work they have done.
Absolutely.
And
even if they're licensing shows that I'm pretty sure aren't real.
We can talk about that later, but they've done amazing work. But, I would love to see the original licensor get in on this game. Like, there's no reason why you can't release a dub of Sound Euphonium. It is a show that is made for an English audience. There's nothing about this show other than, they are in a Japanese school, but otherwise there's nothing so inherently Japanese about this show that it wouldn't make sense with an English version. There are some shows, like, I know Gintama has always been tough over the years because the show does have a lot of traditional Japanese themes in it, so I think maybe there's something lost in translation there, but This is not a show like that. It's about a high school concert band. Like, there's no reason why this couldn't have been put in English.
The biggest hurdle is just having something called a euphonium.
Yeah, which I did not know what it was until I watched this show. Like, it looks kind of like a French. It's like a long French horn. You can see the picture of it on my screen. Now you guys can't, but Mike can. It's kind of something between a tuba and a French horn. Like it's maybe a small tuba. I don't know how you describe it, but
it could have been like sound sousaphone or something. I mean, they could have gone that route.
I wonder if I don't know if euphonium. I mean, I wouldn't think that'd be easy to say in Japanese. So because the title's Hibike Euphonium.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, great show. Kyoto Animation at their absolute best, and super excited that it's going to get an affordable release. And again, I hope this is opening the floodgates to a lot of shows. And again, it's December 17th, Crunchyroll, even back to the Right Stuff days, always ran these big holiday sales. So I'm hoping that, as part of that, maybe we'll see a slew of those kind of shows get new dubs around the holidays.
I'll also be anxious to hear the dub cast announcement.
Yes, me too.
Because I think, if they're making this decision, my concern is that they've found some way to get this dubbed really cheap. I hope that's not what's going on, but until you see the list, you kind of have to wonder.
Yeah, it's definitely something to be concerned about, especially considering we're going to talk about a dub in a little bit that does appear to not only have been done on the cheap, but obviously due to circumstances around the show, it was kind of hard to find out who was even in the dub in the first place, but and maybe concerns about the upcoming season and what the dub will sound like there. But really excited for Sound Euphonium. And even if the dub is not great, to get the first season for, I think it was retailing at like $52 on Crunchyroll, on Blu-ray, I'll take it. That is a victory. So good news there. More good news for some of my favorite shows. Bocchi the Rock, the recap part 1 and 2, going to be coming to theaters in the U.S. and Canada from October 6th through the 8th. Will be subtitled it will be Japanese with English subtitles. The first one being Bocchi the Rock Re, and of course the second one being Bocchi the Rock Re. Of course, continuing.
Was it built by a Riri?
That was uncalled for.
Man.
But the second film earned 218 million yen, which is about $1.46 million in its first 3 days. The first film earned $1.38 million in its first 3 days. Obviously, we talked a ton about Bocchi the Rock. I think it's phenomenal. Can't wait for more of it. Really excited. Hopefully, my schedule allows me to go see this in theaters. It's going to be both movies back to back. We got more covers of Asian Kung Fu Generation, which is great. Those guys, it's kind of cool to see their music popping back into the charts as this show kind of spotlights some of it.
They're now the old guys that are influencing newer artists.
Which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember which song was which they did for this one, because I feel like there was another. I'm going to not find it quickly. Movies. Let's see. We're going to look this up live on the air, and of course it's not listed on here, but there was another big Asian Kung Fu Generation song that was used for the movie. So really excited. Bocchi the Rock, like I said, really enjoyed it. I hope that I was still no dub on Bocchi the Rock, I don't believe. So that's another one that hopefully you're putting forth the effort to put this in theaters. I'm hoping that is a precursor to putting a dub on it. Again, love the original cast. Music shows, sometimes it makes more sense to just stay with
a challenge.
The Japanese, because you're not going to dub the songs probably. So it's kind of like, Love Live. I feel like there was a stretch where they just stopped dubbing it because it was like, you're listening for the music anyway. It's already in Japanese. We don't need to do it.
I think rock music presents a good opportunity where you can dub it. I think of like Beck, Mongolian Chop Squad.
Yeah.
Not only was that a great dub, but you could tell that the voice cast was super proud of the dub and that they would actually perform some of the songs from it at conventions. It was a big deal, and I think they did an amazing job at it. Kind of going back to the story, though, there was also the story that the Gundam movie trilogy was coming to theaters as well in October. So I'm kind of curious if this isn't just some outside of the box thing that movie theaters are seeking just to try to generate some buzz and get more people back into the theaters.
And I saw just down the road from us in Milford, they're going to have the Gundam trilogy in theaters in Milford. But
That'll be cool.
It does make a ton of sense in some way because theaters are dying out. Movies are coming out almost immediately in the home video version of it.
Yeah.
Movie theaters were already struggling before the pandemic. And then the pandemic did not help, obviously. And now people just don't want to spend that kind of money because, like a lot of things, and we talk about this with the video game industry, theaters just continue to raise ticket prices and continue to raise ticket prices. And eventually, people are like, you know what, I'll just wait for it to come out. Like, I don't need to see it that day in a big theater. I'm you're going to spend $20 on the ticket and $20 on popcorn and $10 on a pop, and you're coming out $50 just to go see a movie.
Yeah, I think a good comparison is to suggest that your home theater is basically retro gaming and indie gaming, and more and more people are pretty content with that experience. I think it's movie theaters have to find some way to pivot to really, and I know they did this probably 20 years ago where you started seeing more theaters pop up that had kind of like high-level dining and drinking experiences tied to them. You got to find some sort of gimmick that makes that experience worth pursuing, because especially now where there's still people out there that just don't want to be inside an auditorium with a bunch of strangers, whether it be, COVID-related, whether it be just antisocial behavior. There has to be something to generate excitement again.
And, there was a theater in downtown Columbus that was in the Arena District that we went to many times to see movies, theater. And it was really awesome. But at the same time, it was in the Arena District, which, while you do have people working downtown, if there wasn't a hockey game or a soccer game or a baseball game, people didn't come down there, so they would go out to the suburbs. So eventually it died, unfortunately, because it was always one of our favorite stops. I don't know why there aren't more of those places out there, because to me it is very logical. Like, give people a little more bang for their buck. Give them something they can't get at home as easily, and then maybe you can bring people back. And again, bringing anime in there, that's something that's unique. Like,
it's unique. It's something that has a fairly devoted fan base who might be willing to pay a premium to get that. Because, being a fan of anime, there were numerous times you kind of wished that it was treated with the same reverence as Hollywood movies. Now you might have more of that opportunity. So
yeah,
I think like watching the Full Metal Alchemist movies in theater, that was really cool. Like I would like to do that. Your Name, that was another one.
Yeah.
The Return of Frieza Dragon Ball movie. That I'll more often than not, I'll take that opportunity if it's presented to me.
Yeah, and again, it's it's something unique, and some of those things you mentioned, I might not have watched on home video. The fact that we got the chance to see it in theater actually made me more excited to go see something, because like the Dragon Ball Z movies they're fine. They're fine,
whatever.
But it was fun just to go see it. Like, it made it more enjoyable because we got to see it in the theater. So, exciting news. Big fan of Bochi the Rock, as is pretty obvious on this podcast, so really excited for this news. So let's talk a little bit about fall 2024 anime. So before we do that, good time to remind you to check out our website, nerdcastempire.com. You can check out our store while you're there. Check out previous episodes of the Nerdcast Empire. Obviously, you can catch us live, usually twice a week, here on twitch.tv/nerdcastempire. We've got 25 followers. Our goal is to at least get to 50. We are creeping our way up there. Big thanks to everybody who's followed so far. We're going to be back on Sunday night with another episode of Music Weekly. The music of September the 6th is on tap for this week. Looks like some interesting stuff once again. So excited for that. That'll be coming up Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Nerdcast Empire. And next week we'll be back in our normal time slot. Probably time to do some more music, I believe, next week. So we'll figure out what that's going to look like, and we'll get that to you next week here on the Nerdcast Empire. But we're going to talk fall 2024 anime, and it kind of ties into the news that Crunchyroll has introduced their schedule for fall 2024. And we'll talk. I'll just briefly go down the list because we're going to get into more detail on some of these shows, but shows that I think people will be excited about. You're going to see ReZero. Starting in Life in Another World Season 3 comes out on October the 2nd. And in most cases, when I say that comes out, That's going to be Japanese with English subtitles. The dub will usually trail by 2 or 3 weeks if there is a dub. Prince of Tennis 2 U17 World Cup semifinal coming out that same day on October the 2nd. Dawn to Dawn, another show that people are talking a lot about, October the 3rd. A Trillion Game, not a sequel to Not 100, unfortunately. Comes out on October the 3rd. I stole your joke.
Yeah.
Rurouni Kenshin Kyoto Disturbance. We'll certainly be talking about that in a moment. Also October the 3rd. Sword Art Online Alternative Gun Gale Online Season 2. October the 4th. That is only getting a German dub, so congratulations to our friends in Germany.
Love their guns, evidently.
Blue Lock versus U20 Japan, October the 5th, along with Blue Exorcist Beyond the Snow Saga. MF Ghost Season 2 on October the 6th. In addition, Natsume's Book of Friends Season 7 on October the 7th. That's another big one. Dragon Ball Daima on October the 11th. Shangri-La Frontier Season 2, October the 13th. And then continuing shows, obviously, include One Piece and Case Closed and Tower God.
Some shows are always continuing.
And Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest. Obviously, other shows on there. Let me paste this link into the chat so you can find out where your favorite show is going to be airing on Crunchyroll, if indeed it is going to be on Crunchyroll.
Assuming it's not on Netflix or High Dive.
Assuming it's not on one of those services, which we certainly advocate for as well, at least High Dive. Netflix, we may have to be forced into advocating for it, but interesting stuff. I know you have, I'll let you go first because you have more shows that you've been doing a much better job of keeping up with than I have, unfortunately. But I know there's some big continuing shows coming up in the fall and some shows that certainly have caught your eye. So I guess we'll start with the continuing ones. What on that fall 2024 list kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, I've done a pretty good job at keeping up with some shows and even going back and watching some of the more popular shows of the past, 5-8 years. One of those whose previous season ended in 2021 is ReZero. Season 3 premieres on October 2nd. It takes place a year after the second season. I'm really curious to see how many times, if any, Subaru dies during that season. That seems to be his thing. Kind of interesting that according to my anime list, the first 8 episodes of Season 3 are subtitled Shugekien, Attack Arc, and the latter are subtitled Hangekien, Counterattack Arc. Those, I guess, are going to be pushed off until February, so the winter season of 2025. Opening theme is Reweave by Konomi Suzuki. The ending is Nox Lux by Myth and Royd, so both those are bound to be really good. But yeah, like I said, this show last aired in 2021. Really excited that it's coming back 4 years or 3 years later, and can't wait to get back into it.
Yeah, obviously it's an incredibly popular show. I think it'll be one of the biggest shows of the season. It is interesting to me that they are going the Attack on Titan route, where it's like, we're going to give you some of the new episodes, but not all of the new episodes. But again, it worked for Attack on Titan, so
that's got to be better for the staff working on it, right?
You would think, I
would assume so.
Like that would be a much better way to make sure you're not having to, try to cram to get these episodes out. I think that is, again, we talk about it a lot. There is probably too much anime out there. And because of that, these staffs are just so overworked to try to get this stuff done and keep a high animation quality because that's what people expect out of these continuing shows. So, yeah, I think that's one that kind of makes sense to do that with. And I know, I know a lot of people are going to be really excited for that. And I think expectations will be high. So hopefully it delivers because that's the one thing you always hate about long-running shows is do they get to the jump the shark moment where it's like, oh, this was good. I enjoy it because I like these characters, but this probably didn't need to be made.
I feel like this show through the first 2 seasons was pretty good at diverting itself into subplots to kind of leave a lot of what I think is the A plot of the series intact where you still have to address it ultimately. We'll see how that goes, how the pacing is, and how angry people will be when ultimately there's 3 recap episodes leading into this, which I don't know if that's going to happen, but you never know.
Yeah, it definitely makes you wonder.
Yeah. Moving on to the next show. It's kind of interesting because it's kind of another show that started with a severely underpowered main character, but this guy actually grew up pretty well. He turned into kind of a monster, and that show is Don Machi. Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon? Season 5, Goddess of Fertility arc.
That's a lot. That's a lot to take down.
Debuting on October 5th. The trailer's out there. It's definitely worth taking a look at. Season 4 was a pretty intense season of this show. For a show that, if you go back and watch kind of the first season and the opens and endings, you assume it's just going to be kind of goofy harem type stuff, and to some degree it is, but season 4 got dark. I mean, you had the main characters trapped way down on the lower floors of the dungeon. It seemed like they weren't going to make it. This one looks a lot more lighthearted, where it starts with Belle Cornell, the main character, getting a love letter from one of the women that work at the bar. And just based on watching the trailer, it looks like he has to kind of undergo some training to become more refined and dignified. And then ultimately this draws the ire of one of the families that is kind of a big deal. So I don't know how hard-hitting this season's going to be. Certainly not at first, but it looks like it's going to be fun. The opening is going to be shown by Green Boys, and the ending is Hydrate by Saji Nohana, who have done work for it already. They're good, but yeah, another show I'm stoked about.
Yeah, I can't feel like there's at least a little crossover between the audiences of those two shows.
For sure.
I feel like that there are always shows that are talked about quite a bit by a certain faction of the anime fan base, and it's another one, again, I'm sure there will be high expectations for as it continues on. And it's amazing some of these shows like this that you kind of would peg maybe, at least originally, as like 1 or 2 season shows and then maybe a movie and then see you later. And now they're getting into these 3rd, 4th, 5th seasons. And it's like, okay, how far can you go with this? How much? Because, I mean, these are 2 shows. I mean, we can talk about the show quality, not up for debate. These are 2 shows that push a ton of merch.
Oh, absolutely.
A ton of merch. I mean, this is probably, I don't know if it's Gundam level merch, but it's close. Because
I'm guessing on like the figure end of things, it's probably huge, whether you're talking ReZero with Rim and Ram and Amelia, and with Don Machi, Hestia, and any number of the other characters.
You can't go to a booth at a convention that's selling figures and not immediately see all of those characters front and center. So whether the show ends up great or doing a great, business as far as like the DVD, Blu-ray releases, it's going to continue to print money. And probably as long as it continues to print money, they're going to continue to make series of this show.
The reality is, and I wish that the gaming industry, especially on the Western part of the world, would understand, is that attractive characters sell. It's as simple as that. Whether you like it or not, that is just the reality.
Yeah, it is very true. And certainly the Japanese have figured out a formula. Sometimes the formula is borderline creepy.
Yeah.
But when it's on the right side of that line, they certainly have figured out how to market their characters, male and female. And it's not just female, but male and female. They do a pretty outstanding job. So again, that show's going to be huge. You're going to see cosplayers for both of those shows at every convention you go to for the next 12 months, and you're going to see figures in every anime booth for sure. So I think fans of both of those shows have a lot to be excited about. So what else? Is there anything else on the continuing anime front that you happen to...
There absolutely is. But, you mentioned conventions, so I did want to throw out there real quick that, if you are kind of in the greater Cincinnati area, Sunday, September 22nd is the Northern Kentucky Anime Fest.
Yeah.
The Marriott Cincinnati Airport Hotel in Hebron, Kentucky.
You want to paste the link to that in the chat?
Yeah.
If anybody wants to check that out?
This website's a little sketchy since it's not secure, but evidently it is the, I don't know why it's not HTTPS, but whatever.
I was going to say, is it like OhioCon.online?
It looks like a normal website.
Okay.
It's just not secure for whatever reason.
That's
but
weird.
yeah, really strange. But it's a 1-day event. Admission $20. Kids get in free per one adult. Free parking. If you're kind of looking to maybe try your first con, that probably wouldn't be a bad place to start.
Yeah, I honestly wish I had the ability to do that on Sunday. Unfortunately,
I might swing by there, check out the dealer room, maybe a panel or two. Who knows?
We got soccer broadcast and then tournament draw for our tennis team. So it is going to be another long Sunday. It is. It's going to be as much fun as this all is, and I will never complain about being busy because it sure beats the alternative. I will be happy when we get through September because it has been a very busy month.
You
for
and Green
me.
Day.
That's true. Wake me up. I actually be like, I'm going to go to bed when September ends because I'm going to be tired and needing lots of sleep. So, what else you have for us on the...
So after getting diverted there, I wanted to throw that little plug out there. Another show that I picked up like a season or two ago that I really, really enjoyed. Its second season's coming out, debuting October 13th, and that is season 2 of Shangri-La Frontier.
It's another show that I feel like is incredibly popular and good to see it getting another season as well.
Yeah, really excited about that, like I am all of these. But I think with this show, and I've mentioned it in previous episodes, I think they've done such a great job in creating a virtual game world that feels like a game you could actually play. Whether it's just kind of how the mobs work in the game, the different quests that the main character has interacted with, kind of having these like ultra world bosses that are just super bad news, just really enjoyable. We're kind of picking up where we left off after the main character and his group defeated one of the world bosses. They've definitely attracted more attention, so I'm kind of curious to see where they go with that. And I'm also kind of hoping, again, I've not read any of the source material for this, but there was an episode in season 1 where they introduced a couple of the people that work for the development company of the game. I'm really hoping you find out more about them, kind of get more episodes involving their interaction, and just kind of learning more about what goes into the game. The open is Queen by Lisa. I mentioned before, you're bringing Lisa in. The show must be doing pretty well.
Yeah.
The ending is Dancer in the Dark Night by Otaha. But yeah, premieres October 13th. Super excited.
Yeah, I mean, again, clearly it's doing well. You're bringing in Lisa. You're clearly trying to set a standard for what that open's going to sound like. And again, these are all shows that have kind of been on my radar. I haven't gotten a chance to start on any of them. Maybe I have so many other shows that I need to watch, but no, I think this is another one that's going to do really well, and I think fans are going to be really excited to see the continuation of it.
Yeah, so one more, and I think this is one that you'll have some input on as well, and that is debuting October 4th. It is the second season. It is the Kyoto Disturbance season of the new Rurouni Kenshin.
Yeah, this is one that I'm really excited for because obviously the Kyoto arc of the original Rurouni Kenshin is one of my favorite arcs of any anime ever. And watching the trailer yesterday or today that was released yesterday or the day before, you see all the characters.
The animation looks so good.
The animation looks amazing. The characters are all there from the Kyoto arc. Obviously, Kyoto arc's going to have a little different ending in this if they're being authentic to the adaptation of the manga. Because
aliens show up and destroy Japan.
you're going to see, a little bit different conclusion as it leads into the Jinshu arc, which I presume they will be animating as well. It's going to be 2 core, so it's going to be 2 seasons back to back. So they're going to give it the full Kyoto arc treatment, it sounds like. The music is what it is. I know you're going to talk about the music, and it's fine. Like, it's kind of like most of the dub
I heard the open in the one trailer, and I think it does the job. There's nothing wrong with it.
I feel like that's my only complaint about the Japanese version of the show is that I feel like the opens have been completely fine, and they've done a good job with them. But that's it. Like, I think of a show like Domestic Girlfriend, which is a show that is not the greatest show ever.
But man, the opening is
certified. Amazing. Like, you think of a show like Chainsaw Man, like that has a banger open. Like, why couldn't we? Because the original Kenshin had such great music, and this again perfectly fine.
This is NXT bringing in Sexy Red. I know it's for somebody, even if I'm not the target demographic.
Yeah,
like, there's nothing wrong with this music, and it probably is more appealing maybe to a younger demographic.
And I'm sure that's it.
You couldn't have pulled in like TM Revolution or Larkon CL for this. That would have been pretty fantastic.
It makes me wonder if they just didn't have the music budget for this. But anyway, go ahead and get more details on this. We can talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, so kind of piggybacking off your point, it's the new adaptation of what is my favorite anime arc of all time. I don't know how many shows that are like this, but when I was watching the trailer, every new character that was introduced, it was like watching your favorite pro wrestler return after years away. I wasn't crying in the crowd, but I was kind of popping for it. It's the first time seeing Shishio and Cho and what was his name? the Futai no Kiwami guy.
Anji?
Anji, yeah, like seeing them all, like, oh, that's it, that's him. There it is, we got it. The brother and younger brother of that village.
Yeah. The Shingetsu village,
Yeah, I was going to say that, and I wasn't totally sure. Just seeing that, it's like, I remember that. Like,
yeah.
The manure. Like, I just... I could watch the subtitle of this, I'm sure, and be totally thrilled with it. I would have no problems with it. The first season of the new Kenshin was really good. I think it might have even kind of dove a little deeper than what the original TV adaptation did. It's hard to not still go back to the dub cast, just because, not even a knock on the current cast as much. The original was so good. Every character is like who I want to play every character. I have nothing bad to say about that, and I'm a little concerned at what we're going to get this time around, especially when you have a character like Cho, who was clearly voiced in the English originally to have a certain dialect that I just don't know if a modern dub is going to be like, yeah, let's copy that.
Yeah. I will say, like, the Japanese cast for this show is phenomenal. Like, it is clear that this was a big deal. Number one, probably a big deal because they probably spent a lot of money on the cast. But number two, you just get the feeling that a lot of these voice actors and actresses grew up watching this show and wanted the opportunity to be a part of it when they decided they were going to recast it. I mean, we've talked before about Rie Takahashi, who plays Kaoru, and she's great in everything she's in. But I noticed they've got Makoto Furukawa playing Makoto Shishio, who was Saitama in One Punch Man. He was Shirogane, the main male character in Kaguya-sama. He's been in a ton of huge shows, and they've got him playing Makoto Shishio, which is
these could be dream roles for some of these people.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the names. Yamane is Misao Makimachi, who's one of my favorite characters. Nobuhiko Okamoto as Cho. Onishi Saori as Megumi Takani. Yuma Uchida is Aoshi Shinomori. Like, these are huge stars in Japan coming in to be in this show. Why did we not try to match that on the English side? And I understand, like, there's you can't escape the stigma of everything that happened with the manga creator.
Absolutely.
And that probably has a lot to do with it, because there are a lot of union name voice actors that probably did not want their name on this project for fear that there would be some sort of backlash in their union jobs being a part of this now. And that's a shame, but to some degree, I understand. But you also have to know that there are a lot of people who love the show. They love the original dub. You've got to do your best. I hate to use the term voice match, because that's a challenge to do. But I think you need to make sure that the voices you pick are close enough to the originals that people will at least be able to say, okay, you tried. Like, you couldn't get Richard Epcar, but you got Steve Bloom. Like, but you got somebody that was at least in the ballpark. You got the feeling and the vibe of it. Like, sometimes listening to the clips that you had, because I have not watched the first season dubbed, and I probably won't at this point, some of the voices were completely fine. Others, it's like, did you watch the original? Because, like, I don't even think you tried to line up the feeling of that voice with the feeling of the voice from the original. It doesn't have to be sound for sound, but it's not even close.
I just think there are certain emotions that the original voice cast bring to the character that you resonate with. It's Lex Lang as Sanosuke. He kind of has that, like, young, cocky punk voice.
Yeah,
it worked perfectly. Steve Bloom is great in everything he does.
He is.
I think when you start listing off those Japanese actors as these being, S tier voice actors, Steve Bloom's that over here.
Yeah, like,
if he's not among your top 10 English voiceover guys, you might want to re-examine your list.
Yeah. And, like, there are some people, if these casts are accurate, some of the people in there did do a good job. It's just, again, I just think you needed to go back to the original and hear what it sounded like, to hear, what these actors, I mean, Wendy Lee as Yahiko, like,
yeah,
just absolutely knocked it out of the park. Found a way to get that young boy voice, but also a boy who's clearly going through his maturity process in the show. Like, it was just really well done.
I will say that is one of the better performances in the new one, though.
That's good.
Who they have playing Yahiko did a great job. I thought Kaoru was fine. Kenshin did a good job. And I don't want to say that the ones that I'm not fond of did a bad job. I just don't.
It's so jarringly different.
Yeah, and if you're new to the series and you've not watched the original, maybe you don't even notice. Maybe everything is totally fine for you, and I kind of envy you for that. But yeah, it's hard to compare to that original cast. It was so good.
Yeah. So, but having said all that, I am super excited for this.
It looks amazing.
Looks amazing. I'm sure it's, like I said, I'm sure the Japanese version is going to be great. That's probably what I'll end up sticking to when I finally get caught up on it. The Kyoto arc, like I said, in the manga, most part is pretty authentic to the anime. There's not a lot of filler in the Kyoto arc, so it's almost, I don't say it's frame for frame, but up until the end, it's pretty much exactly the same as the manga.
There was a lot of story to pack into that.
There was. And, they did a really good job of adapting that. It'll be interesting to see, like, how much of the lead into the Jinchu arc do they get into? Because obviously it kind of ends with the Kyoto arc and what happens to some of the Juppon Gatana, some of them were just kind of like, in the original series, like, well, they're gone. They
lost, sorry.
They wandered away,
yeah.
And, you didn't get into, like, what was Iwambo and how that tied into the Jinchu arc and how that kind of all started to set up at the end of the Kyoto arc. So
I'm still trying to figure out what Fuji was.
Yeah.
How was he like 4 times the size of normal humans?
And how did they not come across anybody else in that series?
Is there like a giant village somewhere?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't remember that from the manga other than Fuji. But that's another thing. Like Fuji, the dude that was Fuji's handler, like whose name I just lost. Like,
oh, he had a strange name that I never remember.
Another voice that was, it was weird, but it was perfect. Like, It was just a little gremlin dude.
He kind of reminded me of like the early like Trigun villains.
Yes.
Kind of like that.
And I'm sure they were dubbed at a very similar time, so they probably were going for the same sort of vibe there. But no, Kenshin, again, separating the art from the artist, Rurouni Kenshin will almost always be one of my favorite shows of all time.
Saizuchi.
Yeah, okay.
Also known as the Destroying Yin, Saizuchi is part of the Destruction Army alongside Fuji.
Yeah, so I think I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see how these 2 seasons go, how they go into where do they leave the cliffhanger off of leading in the Jinchu arc, because having read that, there are a couple very logical spots that you could really mess the audience up if you leave it on a cliffhanger going into that.
Without like grossly spoiling it, because I haven't read the manga, but I watched the original anime. Does any of that alter the fight with Shishio, or does that still play out the same way?
Everything up until like Shishio fight and like all that stuff pretty much is exactly the same.
Is the umbrella still broken?
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, it's really just in the aftermath of the end of the Kyoto arc thing. You kind of figure out what's going on and what's happening and where some of this is coming from.
What about Yummy?
Yummy story. But you end up obviously meeting the brother of Kenshin's former wife, who of course is the one that created the scar, the cross-shaped scar on his face. And of course, the fact that the scar hasn't gone away is the Jinchu. It is the revenge. The fact that there is clearly unfinished business there, which is getting it. If you have seen like the OVAs of Kenshin, the ones that are like I can't remember the names of them.
Trust and Betrayal.
Trust and Betrayal is a good one. The movie was bad, but Trust and Betrayal kind of told the story of Tomoe and the cross-shaped scar and all that stuff. This kind of gets more into it, obviously, when they get to the Jinchu arc. And it's, again, the Jinchu arc is amazing, and if they animate it right, people will put it right alongside the Kyoto arc as one of the best arcs
I hope it pans out that way. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, so really excited for that, too. But first off, it is the Kyoto disturbance, what they're calling it. And super excited for that. I definitely need to get caught up on it. Although I don't know if I need to get caught up on it or not, because it's like it feels like I could just jump right into it. And
I think it's worth checking out the first season of the new one just to kind of compare and contrast the original anime to it. Just kind of to wrap up on that, the open is Irin Mano by Tatsuya Kitani and Natori, and the ending is Suikoden by No Melon No Lemon.
I saw that. Like that is an interesting name. But,
yeah. But yeah, that is the roundup of the shows that I've currently been watching that I'm excited for in the fall.
Yeah, super excited for those. I only have one because you have Kenshin already mentioned. So, and that's the third season of Love Live Superstar, which is going to come out in October. This, I believe, if I'm not misremembering, is the first Love Live series to get a third season. Everything else to this point has been 2 series and a movie. Love Live Nijigasaki was a little bit of an oddball because you had the 2 seasons of Nijion, the super deformed mini character, like 3-minute episode series, and then they're also coming back with a couple of new movies that'll be coming out, I think, in 2025. But this is the first one actually to get a third season, and they went from Liella, who's the group in the show, went from 5 members in season 1 to 9 members in season 2, and now they will move on to 11 members in season 3. I don't know what their fascination is with continuing to expand these groups, because the thing that drew me to this show, maybe more than any of the other ones, is the fact that Liella was a 5-person unit. It was so unique because season 1 it was 9, season 2 it was 9. Nijigasaki's an oddball because they're really solo acts and small groups. They don't actually perform a ton as a giant entity, but they're adding 2 more to this cast, and now they will have 11. Again, your mileage may vary on idol shows. I got sucked into the original Love Live thanks to Caitlin Glass because she was posting about it on then Twitter, saying, I really love this. I'm working on this. This is so much fun. It was on the Funimation channel at the time, back when they had a linear TV channel. You should be
watching.
And so I kind of blind picked up I can't remember if I blind picked up the first season or it was streaming on Crunchyroll or something at the time before their partnership. And it just sucked me in, and I've been stuck in idol hell ever since, and have spent a ton of money on the Love Live stuff.
Is that a convention panel?
Probably. I'm sure it is, for sure.
It should be.
But no, I mean, this group's really talented. Maybe Sayuri Date, who's the lead person in this group, maybe one of the most talented singers that they've had in the entire series. She's one that actually was not in show business and went to an open audition to audition for this role as she was either 18, 19 years old, I think, when she auditioned, and just killed it. And that's what sucked me into this one, is her song in the first episode of the original series, and kind of went from there. But really excited, I guess, for another season of this. Like, kind of curious to see where it goes, because these idol shows kind of all have the same formula. Like, here's... the first season of an idol show is always the same. You have one person or 2 people that want to start an idol group. You have them trying to recruit people. You have student council president who doesn't let them have an idol group but secretly loves idols. So then you have to win them over, and then they become part of the group, and then they fail at whatever their first thing is so they can build it back up, and then they eventually succeed, sort of. Like, it's a very formulaic thing. It's in some ways, very much like a shonen anime, where it's just like, except it's girls.
You can apply that formula to any situation,
and it works somehow. But yeah, excited for this. This group's really talented. Excited for more music from them. So
how does Love Live stack up in comparison to other idol shows? Because I mean, there are other long running, whether it's Idolmaster, that. There are others for sure.
That's a great question. I don't know.
It's the one I seem to hear the most about.
Yeah, and that's interesting. There's a couple of lists, as I just did a quick Google search of like the best anime.
And why is D4DJ the best?
Definitely. But it's interesting. Game Rant with the best idol anime. What do they have as number 1? I'm just curious. 'Cause you got AKB48.
Zombieland Saga.
Kirarin Revolution. That's interesting. Aikatsu. There's D4DJ at number 8. Symphogear. Zombieland Saga. Wake Up Girls. Macross
Of
series.
course. I mean, that's...
some of that music is that's going to be on one of our upcoming anime lists.
It should be Idolish.
The Idolmaster, and their number one is Love Live Nijigasaki, which I would agree. Like that is musically the strongest show. Story wise, it's the strongest show. I think because they're not trying to win Love Live. It really does just feel like them kind of going through school and dealing with the stuff that's involved in that. And they're doing this, they want to be kind of on their own because they can't agree on what they want to sing about. So it ends up being a bunch of solo idols. But no, I think Nijigasaki is probably the best in the series. This one, they have the original Love Live as number one. The original, it's interesting. And what I was hoping for is some sort of financial, like how much money.
That's something I would like to find at some point. Obviously, that'll probably take a little more
digging
effort. They
have Skip Beat number one on this list. Followed by Full Moon of Sagashite, which Macross F, which is not surprising. Aikatsu, Pretty Rhythm, Rainbow Live, Idolmaster, then the original Love Live.
That's weird.
The thing about the original Love Live is musically it probably wasn't as great. Like, I feel like they had less refined musical talent. Obviously, you had Yoshino Nanjo, who they brought in to kind of be the anchor of the group. It's like, look,
have star power.
You are legitimately a star. We're going to bring you in to make sure like this group can sing. And they did put out catchy and good songs. I mean, Snow Halation is still like one of the all-time classic, slow songs, and was kind of the climax of the series as they're trying to beat out their rival group, which I just lost the name of, Arise, to basically go and win Love Live. And but the story of that, I think, was so good that I think people kind of forgave the fact that the music quality was not the greatest compared to the later series. Because once you establish it, they were clearly able to get more established music talent to come in and be in the show. So it was almost like a lot of these voice actors were musicians first and voice actor instead of maybe more the other way around in the original series. So,
I mean, that could also be a product of maybe just the songwriters becoming more proficient over time.
I think there's something to that. I think there's a formula for that as well. And it's kind of like jam project songs. Like there's you got Burning Passion. You've got, there's a way to write
They can't all be Crush Gear Fight.
That's true. So, I think there's definitely a learning curve for all. Because the original first, music video for Love Live came out in 2013, 2 years before the anime came out in 2015. So yeah, there was a lot of bad CG in the original too, which I think they have done that is one area the technology has caught up. Like the singing parts and the dancing parts are definitely less creepy looking now than they used to be when it's like, okay, everybody's moving a little bit too in unison here. It looks really weird.
A copy paste of the same model,
right?
Essentially.
Exactly. So there was definitely some.
But I think you're going to have that with any show where it's like, here are the different areas that we can spend money. Music, we're going to spend all this, and oh wait, what's left?
Yeah, and clearly, like I said, it's good stuff, and obviously, the original Love Live may be best known for Kazuchika Okada's wife, Mimori Suzuko. It was one of the characters in that.
Didn't he used to be a wrestler?
He did at one time. Ended up in AEW, and we've never heard from him since. But she moved to the U.S., and I think she does her roles from over here now. But
to your point too about the one series not being about them winning Love Live, I assume that's comparable to not all baseball anime is it the goal to reach Koshien. Sometimes they're just playing baseball.
Yeah, it does kind of feel that way. I think that series is much more about the interpersonal relationships in the group as opposed to about them winning something bigger. And Love Live Sunshine, the second season, was about them saving their school because they weren't getting enrollment. And basically they decided that they had to win Love Live.
It's like Stand and Deliver or Lean on Me.
Yeah. And, of course, spoiler alert, they do win Love Live, and they don't save their school. The school still closes down anyway, so it didn't really work out for them, as it turns out.
Choices were made there.
Choices were made there, but, it's... I can't remember if in the movie or whatever they resolved that, but yeah, they're like, oh, sorry, we still have to close the school down. But
here's the way it really ended.
Right. They give it the Nadesco ending or something.
Turns out they're all the killer. Who knew?
But that's a fun show, too. But like I said, Love Live, I'm excited for Superstar. I think it'll be good.
I did want to point out real quick that we did just get a note from Chris a little bit ago. I guess he actually did get put back on overtime at work.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know he mentioned that it was voluntary, so I'm guessing that volunteer period didn't maybe go as well as they'd hoped.
That's usually how it works. They volunteer, and then nobody volunteers, and then
it's strongly encouraged, and then if that doesn't work...
you're going to get fired if you don't work overtime. So Chris will rejoin us again soon from Parts Unknown. He's at a busy time as well, so we'll definitely be rejoining him, or he'll be rejoining us very soon. But so that's the only recurring show other than Rurouni Kenshin. I know we're going to both have Dragon Ball Daima on our list of news shows, so maybe that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about it already on the podcast. Obviously, with Akira Toriyama's passing, we did the story last week of where are the rights to some of this in the future. And, of course, the idea that they are basically creating this new, we got new kids. They're making them kids again and doing all this stuff. Like, it is, it's going to be interesting. I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts on that and what do we actually think this is going to look like?
Yeah, I jotted down some thoughts on it. Kind of first and foremost, I'm curious if their decision to make multiple characters small will lead to kind of a better overall product than what Dragon Ball GT was. Not that I didn't like GT, but I felt like making Goku a kid just felt so arbitrary, and like they were just trying to refine some of the storytelling magic of the original Dragon Ball that maybe... I mean, let's be honest, Dragon Ball Z, the power creep got so bad. Like, you could only go so far. And ultimately, they did kind of pivot back to that with GT, where you had Super Saiyan 4 and all this nonsense. But clearly, they knew that there was some money to be made in Goku as a kid with his power pole and Nimbus. I'm kind of interested to see how this works with this being the case for multiple characters. And you mentioned Toriyama's unfortunate passing, and I think kind of because of that, I might be more excited for this show, but not in a way of like wanting to be hypercritical or breaking down the plot or the action. I think to me it's going to be more about just celebrating the characters that he created and the world he created in a show that doesn't look like it's going to be all that serious. Because I mean, action aside, the characters in Dragon Ball are great. I love those characters, and we have people that clearly care about them as well that are behind this show, and I'm curious to see what they do with it. But I'm not gonna be too harsh one way or the other because I'm just kind of glad we have it.
So we're getting the opening theme for this Jaka John by Zed featuring C and K. So
I'm a big fan of C. I don't know about K.
So I'm kind of curious what that's going to look like. This Grammy-winning music producer Zed speaks about working on Dragon Ball Daima.
And Zed also does the ending, Nakama, by Zed featuring I or AI. I'm afraid it's AI, but I'm going to assume it's I.
So that'll be interesting to see what that looks like and what that sounds like.
Missed opportunity to not have Hironobu Kageyama come in for the music. I think that would have been fitting, but yeah, or maybe just jam project in its entirety, but we'll see how it sounds.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how this turns out. I kind of want to watch it just to see where it goes. And like I said, I hope that everybody involved in it can really keep in mind that this is going to end up being a tribute project to Toriyama. So try to keep that in mind when you're concerned about where the story's going to go or how long it's going to run or decisions that are made. Hopefully Toriyama has storyboarded it out to the point where they can stay as true to what his intentions would have been as possible.
And I don't know if this is a hot take. Maybe it is. I'm not a hot take guy, but Goku might be the greatest shonen protagonist ever.
He's certainly there. Like, I think, he is flawed in a way that works really well and almost flawed differently as an adult than he was as a child. And I think it does work. I think if anybody disagrees, I think it has more to do with the world he lives in than it does any issues with his character. The Deus Ex Machina nature of it, where it's just like, you're dead. Oh, you're not dead. Like, and it is part of the story, but it's like he's a character that's easy to root for. He's a character that is you're all American, not all American, but you're just white,
naive, just
He's a white bread baby face, to use a wrestling term. He is a dude that is naive to a fault. He is always going to do what is right and what is just, no matter what. And yeah, I mean, to some degree, I think that puts him at the top or near or at the top of the list of the greatest protagonists in shonen anime.
He's a great measuring stick for other shonen protagonists and kind of how they stack up to him and how they differ from him. I think of someone like Gon from Hunter x Hunter, who clearly kind of still has that like naive little boy who's really strong thing going on, but there's a certain just inherent goodness in Goku that Gon doesn't really have. Like, he's way more kind of on the neutral or chaotic side.
Yeah.
And I think that makes him a cool like derivation of Goku. I think if you really wanted to, you could probably put together a pretty good study on just the nature of protagonists, kind of with Goku as true north.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, but yeah, and I'm curious to see how he's portrayed in this show, because I'm curious to see, making him a kid, what that does to his character. Like, does he have more of the traits of the childhood version that we saw in the original Dragon Ball and in Dragon Ball GT to some degree, or is this something different? So, hope it goes well. It's definitely one I'm going to keep an eye on. Coming out in October. October 11th will be the debut for that. So, wish him the best of luck. Hope it does really well.
And hope they get whatever rights nonsense, that whole mess. I hope that gets cleared up nice and well, and we can move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's kind of the only new thing I had on my list. I know you have maybe a couple more. So what do you have on your list?
Yeah, first, I can't help but at least select one that has an absurd title. That's just kind of the thing I'm running with at the moment. The one that stuck out to me the most is the most notorious talker runs the world's greatest clan. It debuted September 30th. According to, I don't know if it was My Anime List or the Live, I think it was Live Chart. Main character wants to be a hero, but his job, Talker, has no combat skills. So it's another one of those, presumably, shows where everyone kind of has an inborn like class or job designated for them, and they just have to deal with it. He attempts to use his talking skill to build and lead the strongest clan. That's all I really know going into it, but yeah, I tend to like shows like that where people have set. It's no different than playing just a random MMO where people have set classes. I assume it's going to feel that way. So it's always interesting when they try to find a new wrinkle in that formula and work it. The opening and ending are both done by Kota Yamamoto. The opening is Tactics featuring Psyche, and the ending is Liberation featuring Ami. Aamyy. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what this turns out to be.
Guessing that's not Tactics, a cover of the
I wish.
Rurouni Kenshin song, if I had to guess. But yeah, obviously the light novel shows make for interesting adaptations for anime, and this is another one, presumably. So it's kind of interesting to see what this ends up being. I'm kind of surprised you didn't choose the hero who was banished from his party is, in fact, the strongest.
If I have time, I might jump on board that one too. That's
a few other ones just worth mentioning, just for fun. I'll become a villainous that will go down in history.
That one sounds fake. That sounds like one that you come up with to try to fool people.
Yeah, the do-over damsel conquers the dragon emperor. Ron Kamonohashi's Forbidden Deduction Season 2. That's the second season of that one. Let's see if there's any other interesting ones this season. The stories of girls who couldn't be magicians. How I Attended an All-Guys Mixer. That's kind of not a great title, but let's see if there's any other.
I'm assuming the one about the girls who can't be magicians is basically just like gender swap Black Clover, maybe.
That could be. Neko Oji, the guy that got reincarnated as a cat.
There we go. It's not Butt Detective, but what are you gonna do?
I didn't want to steal that one from you, Butt Detective, but
there it is.
that began in spring of 2024, so that is a
That's a Toei animation show.
It is.
That's wild.
I thought when I saw it that it was some sort of spinoff from Shin-chan.
Like a visual reimagining of Shin-chan.
Yeah, but and then also 5 billion years button.
I didn't want to count the zeros to list them.
Yeah, but just some other light novel shows to have on your radar for this upcoming season.
And kind of the last one that I added was the reboot of Ranma 1/2.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. This is an interesting one to me, and we talked about it on this podcast. Brought back a lot of the original cast for the Japanese, and some of those actors and actresses are getting up there in age now. So it'll be very interesting to see how it sounds. I guess, obviously, I have not watched the original, but I'm curious to kind of see what the online thoughts are with a lot of these actors and actresses reprising roles that they originally did in the late 80s.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I don't think I could reprise any of my roles from the late 80s.
Yes.
Obviously the show was a big deal, super long running back in the day. As someone who's a big fan of Inuyasha, I always kind of wanted to delve into it, but it wasn't always the most accessible show over here. And looking at the trailer and seeing what they've done with Urusei Yatsura, the way that they've come up with like a modern interpretation of that art style, it's to me, as far as remakes go, those are the best looking out there.
Yeah.
It's so classic yet fresh looking.
To me, it's right up there with what Gundam has been able to do and incorporating the original Gundam animation with the modern style of that. Like, these are, and obviously, what do all those have in common? Giant budgets.
Yeah.
Because that's how you do that. You first off, you get a well-known manga artist who's very particular. Obviously, Tomino wants the Gundam stuff done a certain way. Rumiko Takahashi, obviously, on the other two. So you have somebody who's clearly going to say, hey, we've got to do this right. And you've got studios that are willing to throw a crap load of money at it because it's going to make them a crap load of money. So, yeah, I love the modern retro style where it looks like it could have been something animated 30 years ago, but it wasn't because it's an HD. So I am excited for this. It's going to be on Netflix, so not a Crunchyroll show, although, as I mentioned in the Discord, we're going to have to get Netflix soon anyway because Monday Night Raw will be moving to Netflix in January, so...
And I still have to watch Cobra Kai.
Yeah, you have to watch Cobra Kai.
I'm not sure if they've released the second part of the last season. I know the first part came out a few weeks back. Again, even if you're an anime fan, like, go watch Cobra Kai, because to me it is the best live-action substitute for anime. The way that show, the story is told and the action, it feels like live-action anime.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how these new shows do, like when you have these reboots. I think Urusei Yatsura, at least everything I read, seemed to be a big hit. It seemed to do really well. They
didn't kill it after one season.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, we've already talked about Sumeri Uesaka to bring her in and give her that iconic role and also let her do the themes, or a lot of the themes. In fact, I think she even did a cover of the original Urusei Yatsura theme at some point. So, which is now I'm seeing how the cover song she did for the Alia show. I think clearly that makes a lot of sense. But
when is that just going to become the new standard? Not so much having one person do cover songs, but just having every episode have a different ending theme.
I mean, I'm sure budget again has something to do with that because I think of a show like Lucky Star where they did that, where they had the characters from the show singing covers of popular songs, and that was different every episode.
Well, I think too, Chainsaw Man, Bocchi the Rock, all just had a crap ton of songs.
And again, you got to have money. You got to have the ability to animate separate endings, which is a lot of money. Be able to write songs. I mean, Chainsaw Man did it really well. You said Bocchi the Rock. I mean, all those ending songs are so good. And it's just, I mean, I think your big shows, you're going to see it to be a trend because it's a way to sell more merch. It's like, hey, we got more singles. Like, instead of one single with open end, you now have 10 or 12 or however many. So
I guess it is the natural progression because when I think of some of the older shows, who may have only had one ending and one open, I always thought, man, that's a missed opportunity. Why didn't you break it down, one open per 12 episodes or something to that effect? And obviously later that they did that, but yeah, where does it stop?
To me, I would have loved to have seen a show like Kenshin basically bring new artists in to cover the old themes.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
Like, and, it's not too late. You don't have to do them all, but like, bring somebody in to cover one half. Bring somebody in to cover, Siam Shade. Like, there's.
Well, I think that's something that you have to think about as a fan, and kind of relating it back to Ranma one half is it's really cool that you can nail the animation to look modern yet still the way it did back in the day, but the music's a big part of the show too. I think if you can kind of modernize the music but still retain the music you love, I think that's a great idea.
Absolutely. So really curious to see how that turns out. Like I said, Urusei Yatsura was a big hit. I expect this to be a big hit as well, coming to Netflix in October, so definitely worth checking out. Speaking of checking out, I think it is time for us to check out on this Wednesday edition of Anime Thursdays on the Nerdcast Empire. Great to have you along with us for a little anime talk 24 hours early. Good stuff talking about Fall Anime 2024, also some anime news as well. A reminder of our upcoming schedule. We'll be back on Sunday for another episode of Music Weekly. It's the music of September the 6th. Looking forward to breaking that down. Next week, we'll be back at our regular scheduled time, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, for another episode of Anime Thursdays. And then I believe we'll still be on track the following week for Sunday as well for our music show, which will be September the 13th music, and that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks. But we will probably have some wrestling-related content along the way as well. We will probably do a review of Bad Blood, especially because that pay-per-view is starting early because of the UFC event. So we'll have a kind of an early evening podcast for that one. And then, of course, we may even talk about the first episode of NXT or the first two episodes of NXT on the CW. Really excited to see where NXT goes in the future. Big thanks to Mike, as always, for joining me in the studio. Big thanks to all of our listeners, whether you're listening live or on the VOD or on the podcast version. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening to the Nerdcast Empire as we close in on 100 episodes, which will be coming in the next couple of weeks here on the Nerdcast Empire. That's going to wrap things up for this Wednesday edition of Anime Thursdays. For Mike and the entire crew, I'm Matt saying so long. Don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.